So, welcome, Gerhard Maier, Artistic Director of SerienCamp, Kateryna Vyshnevska, Independent Producer now, and Robert Franke, Vice President of Drama at ZDF Studios. I think we'll just do a quick round of just like mini introductions where each of you get to say what that actually means. Like, what is your job currently? Gerhard, let's start with you.
I'm responsible for most of the content for SerienCamp conference, conference market that takes place in Cologne in June. And so everything that's happening in the conference and in the festival, I'm involved in some kind. I think that's the shortest version I can come up with.
And this also, of course, involves you thinking a lot about the future of the industry, as I know all of you are doing. Kateryna, what's your current status?
So before going all independent, I was the head of development and co-productions for Ukraine's largest studio, Film.ua, and our situation long before the bubble burst elsewhere was that we didn't have the bubble. So we, A, never had the money, and B, the studio setup was that we actually had the full pipeline under one roof. So that was conducive to experimenting.
Yeah. And Robert?
I'm overseeing the drama department of ZDF Studios, and ZDF is an international distribution company, and our revenue engine is distribution. In order to have something to sell, we need to co-produce, and right now I'm looking through the lens of potential future business development at AI and what it does to our industry, how it will transform the way how we are not only producing content but also consuming it in order to make sure that we still all have a job like in the near future.
I like that part about all of us still having jobs in the future. That sounds fantastic. So just before we start, it feels like all of this is moving so fast. And if you like had a Christmas vacation or otherwise blinked, we might have kind of lost track of what's happening in the AI field. So Gerhard, we have asked you to prepare a few minutes to sort of catch us up.
I hope I keep it very snappy. I think one of the things that has shown in the last few months that keeping up with AI development is a full-time job. A lot of people make a full-time job out of it right now. I think most interesting are definitely the results of the strikes in the US, because even though they didn't start out that way, they turned into a battlefield, I don't like this word, but for AI. I think some of the biggest findings I've put here together very quickly. Studios can't make writers use AI. I think that has been hailed as a big success. It is a little bit fuzzy because there are obvious ways around it. You just hire writers who use AI. But it is definitely a step in the right direction, as all of these wins at least establish some kind of guidelines that will lead us into the future. The other thing is studios can't use AI to write or edit scripts. Right now, it is still a technological limitation. They are not able to do this in a sufficient way, but it also sets the stage. It looks a little bit into the future, so kudos to that, definitely. I think we need the
clicker. I'm so sorry.
I forgot about that.
There you go.
Thank you. Writers must be told if material is written by AI, as studios are not allowed to use AI to write scripts or edit scripts. This mostly concerns concept stage material. The writers must be informed about this. It's very straightforward, I think. The fourth part, I think, it's where it gets a little bit tricky. Writers can freely choose to work with AI. This has been hailed as a big win for the writers, placing the tools into the hand of the writers and not in the hand of the studios. At the same time, if you think a little bit into the future, it might open up questions about liability. So if it turns out that some of the usage is not completely within limits of copyright or plagiarism, are the writers responsible then, or is the studio responsible for it? So this is definitely up for discussion. AI can under no circumstances produce source material or original material. Is not that new, even though it has been hailed as such, because under US law, even before, only natural persons can produce work for which copyright applies.
Yeah, so just to like spell that out, a natural person would be what we call a human, typically. So animals, for instance, can't make work, like an animal could paint or take a picture, but they can't own copyright to that.
Yeah,
And the same goes for AIs. Yeah.
And so AIs also are not yet natural persons. I think 3 of the big takeaways from what the actors' strike brought is a fair compensation for background actors. I think here the biggest concern was people getting called in for 1 day of scanning your face or your body, capturing motion, and then used in 100 scenes. Obviously, it's not going to happen that you're going to be called in for 100 scenes, but there's going to be a kind of middle way that has to be found yet. A lot of those are a little bit fuzzy in terms of what they actually mean, but at least they establish guidelines. I think no front-end consent, but consent at the time of the use is a very important one. That means there are no waivers for actors that they sign and then find themselves suddenly appearing in parts without compensation that haven't been agreed upon before. And the other one, the last one, is also a little bit fuzzy. Specific standards for compensation and for performance capture. I think it's right now it looks like it's more important for parts of the game industry, but at least it means that there have to be stricter rules. That means that everybody's on the safe side what they get for the work and be sure how it is used. I think there are 4 big, it's really difficult to put all the developments and all the different parts of AI into neat little talking points. So they are also a little bit fuzzy, but I think here are 4 terms that I think might be interesting in the future, right now and in the future. One of them is proliferation. This means a little bit that what we're seeing right now is a big hiring spree in the US, that the big studios, big media companies in general are looking for AI engineers, people who are able to take care of AI systems, sometimes for exorbitant NFL player salaries. So there is a huge push. At the same time, what exactly is the strategic plan is a little bit on the hush. So I'm not quite sure what's happening here. Here always, I find it's interesting to bear in mind that in phases of this technological disruption, and this is what we're seeing right now, there's always a huge strategic advantage to be gained if you have an asymmetrical information landscape. That means that another person undervalues their assets.
Basically, if you're getting into this game now, you will have a benefit, whether you're a corporation or an individual.
Yeah, at the same time, a lot of the discussions are, in my opinion, not led in the open, and it seems, if you want to be suspicious, that at least some of the companies try to establish facts now, so that later on it's more difficult to change it in another way.
Yeah, let's do the others briefly, please.
Very quickly, I think integration means that a lot of these tools are already happening right now and are integrated into software and hardware that we use. I think Adobe Suite right now is a great example for this, and it's used in a lot of different ways that some of them we are not even aware of. Experimentation goes into mostly, I see it right now in startups and marketing industry, that there are people try to establish workflows, pipelines, how to produce audiovisual content solely by generative AI. The last point, uncertainty. Copyright and plagiarism is right now one of the biggest issues, especially if it involves training data. That means training those big Midjourney ChatGPT systems. There's a big court decision coming with New York Times against OpenAI. I think that will definitely establish new guidelines for this. This is very quick.
Thank you for this snapshot, and of course we're going to talk about this sort of proliferation, integration, experimentation, and uncertainty. This is sort of the area where we're all going to stay for the rest of the conversation. So let's talk a little bit hands-on about where you are right now. Kateryna, you have been actually some while ago already used generative AI solutions to solve problems in production. Could you tell us about that a little bit?
So we've been using AI-enabled tools for quite a while in development, image generation, also in the post-production stage, and whenever we deal with creating key art, etc. Or even, I can't remember the last time we did not use AI to create an opening sequence for our feature films or TV series. But I think the most interesting example to mention is when we used AI and deepfake technology to replace actors in the series that we've produced. And those were special circumstances that enabled that and made it acceptable for the creative industry in Ukraine. But basically, we had, in one of our premium drama, we had Russian actors that enabled us to sell to Russia back in the day. Ever since the war began, in order for us to be able to further exploit the series that has very clear commercial value in Ukraine, to exploit it further, we could not use the actors anymore because they were blacklisted, they were supporting the Russian aggression. What we did, we replaced them. And yes, Ukraine is non-EU, so the laws on what's allowed in terms of copyrights are a bit more fluid. But also it was a very practical solution. How do we, because we also want to honor the work of the Ukrainian creators who worked on the series within the legal framework still, yeah.
So just so I understand, you had to replace the Russian actors in the finished work. So did you use their underlying performance and change the skin, so to speak, or did you also put in a new performance on the body?
Oh, we had to cast an actor who has a kind of a similar physique, and then train the system basically to use that image, so that there has to be enough data set for it. And then, of course, it was only possible for this specific series, for instance, because the technology at the time, and still right now as well, is not there yet to be able to replace any performance. So there are certain angles where it's difficult for AI to deal with, etc.
And I mean, but of course we can see uses, even just for this one thing could be a game changer when for different reasons actors become impossible in finished work. Robert, what about you? How are you engaging with AI in your work, and do you guys already use it on your shows?
So the first thing which we did as a group is basically found an AI agency, which we will launch this February, called Spark. That is going to be kind of like our experimentation and integration hub. And obviously, I mean, we're trying to find like real life applications. We're not too concerned about like AI script writing and all these things right now. I'm quite on the fence on whether or not this will actually materialize in the near future. We are more about workflow efficiencies and how we can make practical application without actually destroying our own industry. So, for example, scrubbing licensed music from tapes, which we otherwise would have to license and exchange them against license-free music is like one of those very simple applications which we're taking a look at right now. We obviously experiment with AI dubbing and building language versions with the help of AI to make more content available. And then, as Gerhard mentioned it earlier, it's about the production process. So how can we use AI tools in order to save money in the post-production or even in the pre-production process by visualizations and these type of things, which will just like make things a little bit more easier and then build up from there. So it's obviously there is the grand vision of like what it can do and how it will disrupt the creative landscape, but at the same time, I think there is a way how we can navigate this without like really destroying what we're doing right now. And the disruption will come anyway. I mean, like there will probably be somebody who will build an app which will create synthetic entertainment. But then again, it's kind of like what we see on YouTube already happening, where a lot of AI-generated content is popping up, and AI-generated scripts and in mass are there and are flooding the platform. But is it really good entertainment, and will it be able to stick out in the mass of AI-generated stuff? So it's like, how can we like work through that without creating an echo chamber of its own AI right in our industry? I think that's a big question.
So it feels to me like you're making a really interesting distinction there between sort of creative tools or like allowing AI into largely into the sort of creative part of the process, and ones that are about more sort of problem-solving tools where they're just like drudgery tasks in the craft where we can see efficiencies. But I find like when you zoom in on that, it's very difficult to draw the line of like where does artistic work begin on a film production? Like you could also argue all of it is. But it seems, is it to you, all of you, completely uncontroversial to use AI technologies at this point to create efficiencies in our workflows?
I think like if we don't use it, we'll give it out of our hands, and we strip away the opportunity to learn from it and to learn with it. And I think it's about evolution from where I sit. I'm rather be part of the change instead of like being changed without any influence. And then also, and I think maybe that's also lead up to the lecture at 4:45 from Tatiana. Like in terms of like the creative aspects, it's like I see this as an opportunity for us to become more human. Because like that is the core of what we're doing. The essence of what we're doing is telling human stories. And let's be honest, I mean, like the most what most writers are doing is just like rearranging shit anyway. So like they take something which they stole from somebody else, consciously or unconsciously, and then they just like, oh, let me write a detective story about, you know. And then you're like, I read so many scripts and I'm just like bored out of my mind. These type of rearrangements are done better by AI. So like this is like an opportunity to leave that to the pros. AI can do that, and then we can be really cool stuff.
I'll let the others in before the writers catch fire in the audience.
You can beat me up later in the hallway.
I don't know if we can take you. Like you're pretty fit, but what do you guys say? Okay, so we have the efficiency sort of helping area, and then we have the creative area. I don't know. React on anything we've said so far, Gerhard.
I think it was Bob Iger who said that when asked about how they will at Disney use AI, he said like we use it in some way in the future, and we already use it to create efficiencies. And I think if you saw the market trend report earlier, I think the pressure to keep down costs is gonna trickle down the chain. And I think at some point or another, everybody involved in that process will be forced to do this in one way or another, because if you see some of the research done right now, for example at Microsoft, to say that writing processes can be made 37% more efficient, whatever that means, and if that's good or bad, it shows that suddenly there's a filter applied to a lot of creative work, a lot of work that's not creative but involved in the creative work, that's suddenly seen through this new filter lens. And I think it's gonna come crushing down very hard on a lot of people in our industry in terms of having to adapt to that.
I think a lot of people, when we talk about writing, are imagining a future. Like, the question is, like, will we get to a point where we can ask an AI to give us a finished script, and then it will be good or not good? But I don't think that's the question. Kateryna, what are your thoughts about writing and AI?
I actually do agree with both of you guys. I think that efficiencies and creativity are not as disconnected as we like to think. The reality is our industry is a bubble, and then at some point Wall Street is going to come and tell us that, yeah, no. And then within that bubble, there's another bubble, which is all of us, because whenever we gather to talk about content and creativity, we're basically talking about the top 10% of contents.
Oh, it's the best things, of course. It's what we make in this room. Yeah.
But then if you take any public broadcaster in the Nordics, they produce, I don't know what, 10 original series per year, which would be, I don't know, 100 hours. And then there's 24 hours in the day, and a lot of those hours are filled in by really mediocre content. And the more pressure you put on the people creating the scripts for that content, the more mediocre they're going to be. So if we can ask AI to supplement them, then maybe the next, the 76th episode of a cop drama in Germany is going to be a little bit more inventive and won't feel like I've seen that in CSI 10 years ago.
So you're saying actually that just taking some of the, helping the writers with their work and maybe
Yeah,
also
exactly.
helping with notes, all of these things can actually make the mediocre work better, not more of the mediocre work.
Well, as long as AI can't take them out to kind of like a retreat and make them swallow ayahuasca until they like explore who they are as a human being and like right from the heart, I think AI won't do anything for that process.
Okay, so we have some disagreement here. Yeah, no, I don't think we're going to get the AIs to take ayahuasca, but surely we can agree.
I'm not advising for it though.
No,
I mean, I'm just saying.
also it's very legal, so don't. But we can see that there's, I mean, in all of our works certainly, and I'm a writer, but like I have to write a lot of things that are not creative in nature, and of course there, even getting efficiencies there would already be a step in the right direction. So. I'm going to just let you disagree on this, on the details of this. What are you most hopeful about right now, and what are you most concerned about when it comes to AI use, specifically in our industry?
I'm really concerned about the unconscious part of our industry, which is driven by people who want to make money more than anything else. And I think there is tremendous harm in AI because like it does not discriminate against like ideas. It will just like produce whatever you want once the filters are removed. And there is it can be used in very harmful ways. And then also, let's face it, I mean, like there is the creative reality, like the bubble we live in, and that's kind of like, oh, we're like here and we're in love with our ideas and all that, and that's great. And but let's be serious. Like the other part is there is money in the market, and that money makes our industry go round. And I think we've seen with the collapse of Viaplay last year how grim these effects are. And all of a sudden, 50% of like local productions here in Sweden disappear because one player leaves. And there is a next wave, a next purge coming, and that is going to be the AI purge. And we have to be prepared for that. And that means like we need answers on how we are going to compete with it. And what I was saying earlier, I mean that. I mean, like it's about really thinking about like what type of content we want to create and how it will resonate. And if we don't have an answer to that, it will outcompete us because it can be very addictive. It's like it can be like crack in the worst case scenario.
Gerhard?
Positive effects. I hope that it gives at least some of the writers that I talked to in the last year, some of them are really excited because they say then I can finally create what I want without anybody telling me, no, that's not doable, that's too expensive, nobody wants to watch this, because I'm the master of my own fate. And combine this with decentralized distribution, YouTube, it opens up interesting avenues. I think the biggest, go into your direction, the biggest dangers are, harmful content and what it means when some of the process gets lost. Because I don't know if some of you worked with AI a little bit. What I found that especially if you write stuff that's not creative, but that's more of the drudgery part, that sometimes if you take out the process of really going in there and chewing for half an hour on a piece of text and then it comes out in a good way, if you outsource that to the machine, it suddenly takes something away. It makes it a little bit more hollow. I don't have great empirical data for this. It's just this feeling of working with it. And I think that's one of the dangers I see, that if you create these efficiencies, you take out at a certain point maybe a process that needs to happen to make something better or great or interesting.
For some filmmakers or some small teams, being able to do things, big things with a very little money or a small team was going to be a gift. And some would have really benefited from that whole grueling process of refining with your commissioners and with your investors and with everybody along the way. Katja, the benefits or threats or hopes to the industry?
I think maybe the word I would go with is kind of curiosity, because of this whole fallout of the bubble bursting and so many people being fired everywhere. So we're at this interesting intersection because that is happening, and then AI, and all the people that have been fired, someone is going to replace them, and these new people coming in, I think it's interesting what they are going to be doing in terms of, are they going to actually think about how AI can be relevant in terms of the new strategies and the models they are building. I think that's the place to watch as well, like in practical terms.
And maybe one more thing, it's a wave of democratization as well, because basically all the market entry barriers which we've been confronted with in the past, like hiring big crews, like renting studios and all that, will slowly and surely not disappear, but like they will become less and less, because AI will, these efficiency gains, they will allow us to produce quality content on a much bigger scale and will put tools in the hand of a public which we've never seen before. So we'll be able to kind of like visualize our minds through the power of AI in a never seen before way, and that will just create way more content than we've ever been exposed to on the one hand, and we've seen that with the creators industry on YouTube and TikTok and so on, and that will be accelerated. So I think like what we're doing has to be really good, and that's what I see as a chance. So we can actually evolve our industry to just strive for the good stuff.
A lot of people are thinking about democratization, I think, in terms of like, oh, but like we're professionals and now all of these like amateurs are going to compete with us. I'm not so worried about that, like our skills aren't going to go anywhere. But that is very interesting that you mentioned the creator economy, because that is a 20-year-old, very professionalized industry that has largely stayed out of the fiction space because of all of those barriers. Like it's been too expensive and too difficult to even start experimenting, even with shorts there. I think there's a lot of creative professionals there who are excellent storytellers who might want to get into this. And of course, these are people we'll work with, not necessarily against, right?
I think this is what I've seen in the last few months when working together with writers with generative AI, that it's one of the biggest advantages if you're able to put what you want to express into the words. You just have to prompt engineer in the way that the machine understands it, but you have to find this barrier, and this is language, and writers are good with language, creatives are good with language. So I think this is a really big advantage, combined with having the vocabulary to really put what you have in mind as an image, as a visual, into the prompt, into what you have to achieve it. And I think this is where you see that the experience, I think a lot of jobs that you had to train for years to achieve certain results, they're now achievable with a quick click and some words, but at the same time, the knowledge that comes with it, that still I think is the biggest advantage that you have when you deal with those tools.
So 4 months ago, I hosted an AI seminar in Stockholm, and we had the creators of Curious Refuge, which is an AI training facility and other things there. And they're working with these tools all the time, also with professional productions in Hollywood, both indie and very commercial. And they said the thing that is shocking to them is how good the tools have gotten fast. And they also said they thought at that point, 4 months ago, that we are 36 months away from prompted video being of a quality not just good enough for online, that's today, good enough for television, already happening in advertising, coming very, very soon to the smaller sort of screens. They're thinking feature film quality, prompted video within, I guess, now 32 months. So that suddenly we'll have a choice. We'll have the choice of the camera, the physical camera, the virtual camera, or the prompted image in less than 3 years. Do you believe in the timeline, and how will we be working when that happens? Robert?
I'm not a technical expert to be able to comment on the timeline whether or not it's realistic, because I think that I leave that to the actual people who develop this. But from just the progression, like in my personal empirical sense of what's happening and what happened in the last year, I can definitely see that this is a realistic timeline. And what does that mean for our industry? I mean, it will hopefully make things easier for everybody, and also maybe it's a chance for us as creators to kind of like emancipate ourselves from bigger structures. So it will put tools in collectively in our hands, which allow us to express ourselves, and I think that's a great thing. That's always a great thing. And I'm just curious to see how that will translate into product, and hopefully product that will be inspiring and will have a positive impact on like what we like do and what we consume in this world, because like there's already enough shit around us when we turn on the news. So that's my hope.
Kateryna, what's your view on prompted video
Well, I think it's gonna happen. I don't know about the timeline, but I think what's gonna be interesting to see is that we kind of keep forgetting about another valuable thing, which is time. And what does it even matter? Time isn't like how many hours we have available to view things. So what does it even matter if we produce a lot of content much quicker and cheaper? You still need to you end up with a sea of content. Yeah. So it's going to be disruptive, but it's maybe not in some new interesting ways. How do you make that content stand out, and who's going to watch it? Because otherwise, and how are people going to make money on it if no one is watching it and therefore buying it? Yeah.
I think it is quite realistic. There are recently popping up problems of technological nature that are really, really interesting. Model collapse, like what happens right now, that the new systems are suddenly not only trained on human stuff, but on stuff that is made by humans and by machines in the internet. And what you see is there a regress of the system. So there are some sand in the motor right now. That
the snake is eating its own tail.
Yeah, a little bit. So it's a lot of engineers are working on that problem. But I think that it's a realistic timeline to say that we in the next 30 months, 30 plus months, we have content where we cannot distinguish if it's shot on real location with real people or if it comes out of an AI here.
I have to ask quickly something super fascinating that Kateryna said to me yesterday, which was so many people's AI visionaries see, finally, we can have individualized content, like you can be the main character of Lord of the Rings or whatever it is. And she said, who wants that? And I was like, I don't know, I don't want that. Do you think that individualized content is really something that we have yearned for as a species?
I don't think so. I think story originated from a collective experience, sitting around a campfire, sharing something with each other. And on the opposite, consuming it by yourself is just will separate you from society and its fabric, and I think it will just create more loneliness, and that's basically just escapism from reality. So this lonely consumption, and let's look into the future if it is being created by a synthetic source, and maybe it's just being all the time in your head and creating their own stories. A would-be life you could live in, all that would be really disastrous for our collective consciousness, I think.
Gerhard, do you want an individualized version of
I definitely don't want it. I see it happening. I think Mario Klingebein, AI artist from Munich, he already saw this 20 years ago happening as a dystopia. But I think that what definitely will emerge is a new kind of medium storytelling that's somewhere between film, games, and virtual worlds. And there I can definitely see that this kind of completely individualized space in there, whatever kind of form it will take, is going to happen. But I hope that we're not each of one gonna watch their own TV series and we have nothing to talk about.
And I mean, actually, computer games are a really good counter-example of so many millions of people who have played Baldur's Gate this year and have all their individual life-changing journeys. Kateryna, finally, before we invite Liselott up, what's your positive vision for what AI technology can deliver to us as storytellers that we would want?
And I was not prepared for that question.
No, I realized just now that I'm going to throw it at you. But is there a small thing that you would dream about?
I honestly don't know. Can someone else take it?
I'll let you consider it, and then we'll ask Liselott to join us. Are you here? Please grab a microphone and come up. Liselott Forsman is CEO of Nordic Film and TV Fund. Welcome.
Thank you.
We have one slide, I think, as well. At Nordic Film and TV Fund, you do these theme years, and this year your theme is Talent in the Age of AI. Can you just super briefly tell us what will you be doing this year?
Actually, we started already because the idea came exactly 1 year ago in Gothenburg when we thought that nobody in this industry is talking about AI. So we formed a WhatsApp group. All 3 persons here are in that group, and we update each other constantly on what's happening on AI. I'm on the receiving side. These are the experts. And that is why you realize now so much is happening since ChatGPT was launched, and everybody understood that this is coming on a concrete level. So now we decided like very early last year that we need to talk about AI. Now came the question, but now everybody is talking about AI. Do we still need a theme? Yeah? Yes, we do. And that's exactly because there is so much information out there on so many levels.
What will you be doing, Lisbeth?
That we have focused it on our industry, on the Nordic industry. We are looking at creative tools. Many scriptwriters here be asked to take part in our research, asking scriptwriters, what do you need to know? What is your fears, your hopes? To help them go on with their work and know more about AI, because I think nobody can pretend this is not happening. It's happening.
Yeah.
Whether you use it or not. And then, of course, we are looking to creators' rights, as you can read, and also we do it through research and through discussions at different events, and we will also publish online that knowledge that is essential, not only for scriptwriters, we are looking at the production side too.
So you will be contacting the writers. Who should be contacting you about this?
Anton, are you here? We are working together with many people, and you will get all the information online in our newsletter this week, and also everybody can mail me. If you are working in our industry in the Nordics and you want to take part in this venture, please do so.
Great, thank you very much. Then we have just a few tiny more minutes that we have been given, so I would like to ask all of you, who should be doing what now? What's the next thing that needs to happen? Robert, would you like to start? What needs doing and who should do it?
Oh boy, that is a tough question. I think I would love to see more of these types of forum-like discussions where we all engage with each other and talk about like, okay, how do we want to develop our industry in the future, and like what role should AI play? And in a way, I really appreciate Gerhard for like this little presentation, because it just shows, okay, like if we set rules and stick together, there is a way to like not be protective in a negative way, but just like protect what we have and advance it from there with AI. And I think that is the vision I would like to see come into fruition in the future.
Kateryna, who should do what?
I can see this happening finally a little bit already, but since we do want to protect us as people within this industry, I think we should be really focusing on the people who are now in the film schools, and they're getting trained to produce content. So we need to make sure that when they go into the wide world, they are actually equipped to exist in it.
Yeah, that's so important. Yeah.
I think my biggest hope is to maybe widen the discussion so that a lot of people sitting here and listening to it are actually engaged in the discussion around it. So this, I think, is a really great initiative, because there needs to be more exchange to come to an informed opinion of what is good for you as a writer, as a producer, and I hope that this at least brings 2024 a little bit.
We should talk inside our industry organizations, so through media organizations like Nordic Film and TV Fund, but I'm starting to think maybe also on our productions, like within our projects, now is the time to start talking about this. And Liselott, who should do what?
Yeah, and end of next May in Helsinki, we will have hundreds of writers discussing AI, and this is on a concrete level something that I support totally what Gerhard said, but also on an ethical level. Our fund has the possibility to get together our 20 partners, also Nordic Council of Ministers and Nordic Council, who on a political level also are working with AI, and for example discussing with big corporation the AI ethics.
Yeah.
And that is an important part for us too, but I know we are running out of time, so
I'm a little bit envious. I would love that this initiative would...
We are in fact out of time, but I would say, if anybody has a positive vision for AI in like a sentence or less, now would be the time to say it.
You know what sorry, I feel like, oh my God, I failed that question. But I remembered reading recently about photography in the early 1900s. And it was exactly the same discussion. It was alienated from there were quite a few landmark cases in the States at the time, because basically you couldn't copyright photography. Camera did it. They made it work, and we all accepted it. So I think we'll find a way.
And I think we shouldn't be afraid. I mean, we should be careful and learn a lot and collaborate. And that's the thing in the Nordics especially. We are so used to collaborating. And this is something we super much must collaborate, even also with you from Europe.
This is wonderful.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Liselott Forsman, Gerhard Maier, Kateryna Vyshnevska, and Robert Franke. Thank you.